You're listening to The Roots, a podcast from Minnesota AMA District 23 ARMCA. I'm your host, Jackie Reese. Let's dive deeper into what makes our district so great. Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of The Roots. I'm your host, Jackie Reese, and I'm joined today by Logan Cipala. Logan, how's it going?
Very good. How about you?
Good, thanks. So you're a guy who's done pretty much every discipline of dirt bike riding, from motocross to your real specialty in hill climb to snow bike racing and even snow hill climb. Where did it all start, and at what point did you get involved with District 23?
Yeah, so it all started when my parents met racing, and my dad's uncle got him into it, and my mom's dad got her into it. And then they started. I got my first bike when I was 3 years old, I think, for like my third birthday, and I started hill climbing in District 23 and District 16. As soon as once I was 4 years old, and I haven't stopped since. I think I've had my District 23 card every single year since then. So I guess that'd be 21 years now.
Veteran status now, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
So take us through a little bit of your amateur career. You had a whole lot of success. I think 11 championships in the nationals. So take us through a little bit how you decided like hill climb was your fit and like your amateur career.
Yeah, we did. My parents, that's what they did when they raced. So that was naturally what I was brought into right away. And then I did a few motocrosses when I was like on the PW 50s and all that, but I would only do a couple a year, and then I kind of got out of it. And I really just focused on hill climbing up until I was probably 15 or 16 years old. Um, had a lot of fun doing that and traveled this series. I was not very good right away. And when I was really young, like on 50, 65, 85s, I did not have a whole lot of success. I won my first, my amateur national title in the 65 class, and then a couple state titles, but like weekend to weekend, I was not winning. And I was usually second, third, fourth, anywhere in there. There were a lot of way faster kids than me. So through the years, I grew up and I started getting, a little more passion for it year by year, and started riding more and more, and then doing some more motocrosses and woods racing and riding. And I just continued to progress and get better every year until I eventually started getting into some of the pro stuff. And then once I got into that, it gave me even more drive to just keep practicing and getting better. And it's just kind of gone up pretty much every single year since then.
Nice. So at what point in your amateur career did you realize like I could really go somewhere with this? I could go pro. And then at what point were you like, yep, this is the year I'm going to go pro?
Yeah, it was probably, so in hill climbing, it's a little bit weird. You can kind of go back and forth in it if you do it, depending on how you do it. So I kind of bounced back and forth for a few years there, and I kind of called it like my semi-pro years, where I do a few part-time pro races and then would focus on the amateur stuff more. And then I'd say it was probably 2015 or 2016 after I ended up winning 3 amateur hill climber of the year awards back to back to back. And then after that, I kind of decided that I was ready to move on and just focus and do everything that I could. And then each year from there, I've done more and more races, or more and more professional races every year.
Nice. So how do you think racing all these different disciplines in District 23 prepared you to take that step forward?
Oh, I think you cut a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, I was just
missed part of it.
asking, how did racing all those different disciplines prepare you to take that next step forward?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Like I think for hill climbing around here, there's not really anywhere that you can just go and practice hill climb. Like I don't take my race bikes out very often and just find hills to climb. And obviously we don't have a ton of hills around here to just race up and practice on all the time. So every single discipline that I've raced this far has helped me become a better hill climber and become a better rider overall. Like the woods is really good at on the rough hills when it's basically one rut all the way up the whole hill, and you have to stay in it and not make mistakes. So woods racing is perfect for that. And motocross is like the high intensity sprints that you need for hill climbs too. So it's kind of a mixture of both. Like I always kind of compare the whole shot of a motocross to what hill climbing is. It's only 10 to 15 seconds, but it's literally as fast as you go and as close to the edge as you can possibly get without making a mistake.
Cool. Yeah, that's a cool comparison for me. Like I've never done a
Yeah.
hill climb, so that it makes it more relatable for
Yeah, yeah.
my experience too. And at what year was your first pro championship in?
So the first championship that I won would have been 2017, and that
And
was in the West Coast Series.
how was that? How did it feel?
It was awesome. I mean, I was kind of right on the edge the whole weekend on whether I was going to win or not. The points were super close going into it, and then it was a hill that I've never been at before, which is always really difficult. And it was basically just me and a buddy that drove out to Wyoming to race there, and I ended up having an awesome ride and made a mistake right before the timing lights at the top, and I was sitting in, I think I was sitting in like second, and the guy that was leading at the time, if he won it, he was going to beat me, and another guy ended up beating him, so the points worked out that helped me win it. So it was like the biggest relief. It's so stressful because I hadn't won anything, and it was just like the biggest. It was at that time by far my biggest goal, and that I had been working towards.
Nice. And you won your sixth this past summer, but you had some pretty big adversity in the beginning of the year. Tell us a little bit about your crash that you had and what happened and how it felt to come back and be on top after that experience.
Yeah, it was another crazy story there. Just I like to train at the sandbox in New Richmond 2 times a week all winter. So I'd been going and riding quite a bit, and like everything was fine. And I was getting ready to kind of pack up for the night. It was like my last session out, and I was doing a really long moto, and I was just flowing and feeling really good. And I was having a ton of fun. Like every time I came up to the pull off, I just didn't want to stop. And right before, there was kind of a corner that had some chop in it, and I ended up coming out of there and getting bucked weird off my bike and landed on top of my bike, and got up, and I like wasn't hurt that bad. And I feel this huge a lump under my jersey, and I kind of put my hand on it and lift my jersey up, and saw part of my intestines hanging out of my body from the side.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Oh, dude.
I completely panicked, ripped my helmet off, and I was like waving on the track and like trying to sit down or stand up, and everything hurt. So I just stood there for a little bit, and then ended up walking into the lobby, and the awesome people on the Tuesday ride night helped me out. And then I ended up having to get an exploratory surgery just to make sure that there's no internal damage and all that. And it was by far the most painful thing I've ever had happen to me. They basically cut your abs in half, so you have zero. You do not believe how much to use to get out of bed until you have no core.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it was pretty painful there. And then that was right as COVID was hitting, right as everything was getting shut down. So I was literally in the hospital as all this crazy stuff was happening. And then I was pretty much out. It was going to be kind of iffy if I could race the AMA series, and the Moto Climb Super Series I also raced was completely out because I was like 3 weeks away from the first race there. So we thought that maybe I'd be able to race one class in the AMA series, and then just more and more races kept getting postponed or canceled completely, which I was like kind of not too bummed about. I was bummed to not be racing, but ended up working out where the AMA stuff didn't start until September because all the restrictions kind of loosened up out east at that time. So we were able to battle back, and it was kind of a crazy series too, with only 2 different races, but we had 6 rounds between the races. So yeah, we ended up winning the 450 class and the premier class championships in that, which was huge for me because nobody has won the premier class championship on a gas bike for, I think, since 2009, and he might have been the only one to do it then. I never would have dreamed that I had the potential to win that title. So it was just huge coming off the injury and working hard all summer to get back in shape and get on the bike as much as I could, and then be prepared for that series to come up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize it was that bad. Your crash was that bad. So that's alarming, I guess.
It was super scary, and it was just crazy because it's like not a bad crash, but just horrible end results from it. I've crashed worse than that 3 times in one day, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, that's awesome. That's a great story, and congratulations on number 6. That's pretty
thank
cool.
you.
So we met in snow bike racing of all places. How did you get into that, and how did you get hooked up with snow hill climb of all things at X Games?
Yeah, so it's actually crazy because I think it kind of um, well, the snow hill climb happened the year before I raced snow bikes, I think, actually. So that was just a kind of a crazy deal that Harley Davidson came up with, and they wanted to sponsor an event in the X Games that was something new, something different. And they kind of had an idea where they want to get younger people involved and be more of a race oriented brand from what I was told. And we have some friends at Hill Climb that live near Milwaukee, which is Harley's headquarters. I had a good relationship with their race program, and they wanted they had a few rules where it had to be a V twin, it had to be running on race gas, and then a couple other rules for like setups and stuff. But my bike fit that category, and I've got a pretty good presence in overall of hill climbing. I knew the people in Milwaukee pretty well, so they invited 8 people out the first year to do that. So it was a little bit of an invite only type deal, which the X Games stuff is kind of weird about some of that, as I'm sure you're aware of too. But that was how we got in with that. And it was just kind of, I mean, a little bit of luck and a little bit of just being present everywhere and doing as much racing I've had and making the connections with people. And then the snow bike stuff was a year after. It was when I first got started with that. And my engine builder, Kirk Mueller, is good friends with a guy named Jay Middlestat. He owns Jay's Power Sports in Reedsburg, Wisconsin. And he has raced Polaris snowmobile for a long time, so he had a good connection with Polaris, and he sold the timber sled. So they asked if I wanted to go and race for them for a season and try to make it, with the end goal of making it to X Games. So I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome. And I'm used to riding big, awkward, heavy bikes because my hill climb bikes all are. So like it might be a really good fit. And I got on and felt pretty comfortable. And I was only like a spot or two away from qualifying the first year before I went down. I only had a couple laps left. So, and then I ended up getting like an alternate invite, and then that ended up getting promoted up into an actual invite for X Games. So I got to race there, and unfortunately I was nowhere near in the shape I should have been or anything. It was a little bit last minute, but it was pretty awesome. And I love racing the snow bike too. As you know, they're incredibly fun.
Yeah, for sure. The snow hill climb thing is just, watching it on TV, I feel like probably did it absolutely no justice at all. What was that track like?
Yeah, it was, unfortunately it did absolutely no justice. So the first year we raced up the half pipe, and it's not very steep even for like a regular hill climb, but the half pipe, like when you get to X Games, it actually looks pretty steep and pretty gnarly, which is cool in person. At least on TV it basically looks flat, obviously. But it was so weird because we've never done anything like that. Like we were scratching our heads with setups and had no idea what to do. And I was like, we use a little bit of metal in the summers on hill climb tires. So we'll use like a paddle tire with bolts through it to get traction on the harder pack hills. And then that was kind of what I ended up just using the first year. And I think since everyone was so unprepared with their bike setups, where I've been riding the bike that I raced there for 6 or 7 years total. So I had a pretty good setup and I knew the bike really well. And I kind of got lucky with my tire setup and it ended up working. So I kind of capitalized on other people being less prepared as well, but it was part of it. And then the second year we raced up the big air landing at X Games. And that was quite a bit steeper, but still just the snow is just not what our bikes are made for. So they're going so slow compared to what they could be like in the dirt. So
yeah, it's just a crazy idea, but pretty cool idea, and unfortunately was not back for 2021 X Games, the snow bikes or the any motorsports period. So hopefully they get to come back in 2022, but I guess
for sure.
So when I was putting together the yearbook, I talked with Bodie O'Neill a little bit, and he mentioned that he really looks up to you as a rider who came from our district and what he could become and what his career could be like. So what kind of advice do you have for younger riders who might be striving to have the kind of career that you've had?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just like when you're young, don't worry about the results and just go and have fun. Like I did not have stellar results as an amateur. I won a few titles here and there, but I struggled most of the time and didn't do that well. And just let the passion and the love for racing take over to promote racing more and wanting to race more. Like for me, it's just the fact that I love racing so much. If there's a race anywhere in the country, it tears me apart to be missing out on it. Like I just want to be everywhere. And when I see races double scheduled that I can't be at, it kills me inside. So for me, it's just the pure love of being able to race. And being able to make a few bucks where I can kind of break even for racing and invest a little bit back into my program every season. So it makes it pretty easy for me to be able to travel when you're like that. But for me, it's just been like absolute fun, and that's the bottom line. And if you're not having fun, it's not really worth doing. I've learned that the hard way too.
Right, right. So what are your plans for 2021?
Yeah, so for the season, I think right now, for sure, racing the AMA Pro Hill Climb Series, that's number one on my priority list all the time. They just do such a good job, and it's such a fun series, and they really do it right. And I love being able to support the AMA as well, and what they do for us is pretty cool. And then besides that, I want to do quite a few hare scramble races. I've got quite a few on my schedule right now, and I finally am getting a bike that's a little more dialed for that stuff, because that's kind of my second passion behind hill climbing. And then fill in the spaces where I can, doing some fun races. Like I like to try to do a few District 23 and District 16 hill climbs when I can in the summer when I'm home, to support the clubs and support the series. And then I'll be working a lot too, because the Valley Springs Motorcycle Club, which I'm part of, is putting on professional hill climb and the amateur nationals this year for AMA hill climb too. So I'll be working those events and kind of designing the courses and for the pro race, and then just helping get everything running and ready and running smoothly for the amateur nationals.
Nice. So it sounds like you're going to be busy every single weekend.
Yeah, that's the plan. I think I usually like to keep about 4 to 5 weekends open all summer where I don't have anything to do. That's about all it is. So
Crazy.
and then if I'm lucky and if it works out, I might try to do some snow bike again this coming winter.
Nice. Yeah. I hope our series, I hope it gains more traction. This year was pretty low turnout, but yeah, what do you do? So
Yeah.
I'm pretty guilty of, very guilty of never having even been to a hill climb. What should people look for? Why should people watch hill climb? Why should they come give it a try? Like, convince me.
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously biased, but hill climbing has the best people in motorsports in general. I mean, everywhere that I go, I've never been to a race where if you don't need help, someone's going to help you no matter what. I've had people give me parts off their race bikes and help me tear apart my race bikes while I'm doing it, help me with everything. I mean, I've got 6-year-old guys with their backs in the sun working as hard as I am to change a tire so I can make my run in time. And I've had one of my good friends help me rewire a kill switch to just so I could make a run. And like all that is so much fun, and just you really become a family, because it's a little bit smaller, more tight knit community. So that's what I really like. And then the fact of watching is there's just so many exotic stuff. You know, you go to a motocross or a hare scramble, everyone's kind of got the same thing. It's all a modern motocross bike with some graphics on and this or that. But like our hill climb bikes, there's street bike motors, there's CBR 1000s, Yamaha R1s. I've got a BL 1190 V twin, KTM 1190s. They're just, and 150 to 300 horsepower open bikes that are going wide open as fast as they can up the gnarliest hills you've ever seen. So you really can't beat it. And it's so much fun to watch when you get to the right hills where it's just intense the whole time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think one of my goals this year is to go to one of everything or try and ride one of everything. So for a beginner, where would I go to do my first hill climb?
Yeah, there's quite a few really close to our area. So Mankato, Minnesota has one, New Ulm, Minnesota, which is not too far from Mankato. Bay City, Wisconsin, which is the club that I'm in. Red Wing, Minnesota, Hickston, Wisconsin, which is CMJ Raceway, not too far. It's only about an hour and a half, 2 hours from the Twin Cities. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any others, but I think that's kind of it for the local stuff. There's a lot on the East Coast, a lot on the West Coast, kind of all over.
Which one do you
So there's
recommend
tons of places to do.
Sorry, go ahead. Tons of places.
No, I was just saying there's a lot of places all over the country to kind of do it, depending where you are.
Yeah. So which one of those local to us here in District 23 is the most beginner friendly?
The most beginner friendly, I would definitely say, is going to be like your probably Red Wing, Minnesota, or CMJ Raceway at Hickston. Like the Hickston one it's pretty easy for stock bikes to get over, and then Red Wing's a little bit more challenging, but it's a bit bigger of a hill, I guess. So those ones are both good for beginners. And they have stock wheelbase classes. So our stock classes compared to like a motocross stock class, a little bit different, where basically a stock class, you just don't have to put extensions on your bike.
Mhm.
And then you can compete a little bit more, because without the extensions around here, it's pretty much not possible. So yeah, you just got to sign up for that and then get a kill switch. So they're basically, it's a tether, and quad motocrossers are super familiar with them, or like snowmobile racers would know exactly what they are. So you have to wire one of those in, so that in case your bike sticks wide open going down the hill, it's never good. We've seen a few of them and it ends bad. So they help try to prevent that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Logan, for your time. Thank you for joining me for episode number 2.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And thank you, everybody, for listening to our second episode. We will catch you in 2 Mondays for episode number 3. Thanks for joining us. Catch us every other Monday wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our YouTube page.